Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, inshallah, we're going to discuss the relationship between the price elasticity of demand and the slope of demand curve. As well as we are going to discuss also the cursor price elasticity of demand, and if we have enough time, we'll go to the income elasticity of demand. As you know that the price elasticity of demand, price elasticity of demand, ED, equals delta Q, or the general formula equals delta Q, the change in quant demanded, over delta P times LP1 over QD1. Right? This is the general formula to calculate the price elasticity of demand. Today, we are going to distinguish between, or to study the difference between the slope of demand curve and the price elasticity of demand. So let's come back to the forms, the different forms of the demand curve. Number one, when the demand curve is inelastic, elastic, perfectly inelastic, and unitary elastic. So number one, when the demand curve is inelastic, this is the demand curve. It's close to a vertical line. A, B, suppose that this is the price quant demanded. In this case, as you see, the percentage change in the price is larger than the difference or the change in the quantity demanded. So suppose the initial price is, or the original price level is 10 shekels, and it has increased to 15 shekels. The quantity demanded was 10 units, 10 kilograms, and it has declined to 8 kilograms. Let us calculate the price elasticity of demand and then the slope of the demand curve. So as you see, in this case, the demand is inelastic. Why? Because the percentage increasing the prices is larger than the decreasing the quantity demanded. So ED equals delta Q percentage over delta P percentage. ED equals, as you see, the percentage in change and the quant demanded is how much? How much does the reduction in, yes, no, 20%, right? 20% equals delta QD equals 10 minus 8 over the new minus the old over the old one, 10 times 100%. This is the change in the quant demanded. Yes, the new minus the old over the old one, right? Or in general, we can calculate it directly. The reduction from 10 to 8 equals 20%. Reduction by 20% over delta P. There is an increasing by 15%, by 50%. From 10 to 15, they're increasing the price is 50%. Sorry, yes, 50%. So as you see, ED equals how much? 0. minus 0.4. Right? So in this case, the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. So it would be inelastic. Let's come back to the slope. The slope of demand curve, the slope equals delta P, the change in the price over the change in the quantity demanded. Delta B over delta Q equals P2 minus P1 over a Q2 minus a Q1, right? So at this point, the price 2 is 15 minus 10 over Q2 minus Q1. 8 minus 10 equals 5 over minus 2 equals minus 2.5. No, the slope is larger than 1. So as you see, when the slope is high, the demand is inelastic. So as you see, the absolute value of the slope is larger than 1. So in this case, as you see, when the slope is larger than 1, the demand is inelastic. This is the first case, right? Yes.
Demand.
Yes.
20% على 50% كيف جبت موجة 20-50؟
Yes. As you see, we have a reduction by how much? From 10 to 8. The percentage is 20%. Because, as you see, I will come back to this point. As you see, the percentage change delta Q في المية or percentage equals the QD the new minus QD the old or the old quant demanded over the QD old times 100%. Right? So as you see, this is the original quant demanded or the old quant demanded, and this is the new quant demanded. Right? So it's equals to the new quant demanded is 8 minus the old quant demanded is 10 over the old quant demanded, which is 10 times 100%. Right? So it's equals to 8 minus 10 minus 2 over 10 times 100 equals how much? Minus 20%. Yes, minus 20%. Right? Is it clear? Okay. And the same you have to do for the prices. You have to do the same to calculate the percentage change in the prices. The new price minus the old price over the old price times 100%. Right? So in this case, in the first case, when the demand is inelastic, the slope is what? It's larger than 1, or the absolute value of the slope is larger than 1. Let's go to the second case. When the demand is elastic. The demand is elastic means that the percentage change in the price or the quant demanded is larger than the percentage change in the prices. So, or the demand curve is close to a horizontal line. So this is the price, QD, and the demand curve is close to a horizontal line. This is D, A, B, 10, 15. The original quant demanded or the old quant demanded is 10, and P, suppose it was 4. So ED equals delta QD percent over delta P percent equals the increasing the prices or the reduction the quant demanded is 60%, right? From 10 to 4, there is a reduction by 60% and the quant demanded, right? So there is, without calculation, the new quant demanded minus the old one over the old times 100. And so from 10 to 4, there is a reduction by 60% in the quantity demanded over the increasing in the prices is 50%. It's equals to minus 1.2. The absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is larger than 1, so the demand curve is elastic, right? So the absolute value is larger than 1, so the demand is elastic. So let's calculate the slope. Yes, the slope equals delta P times or over delta Q. P2 minus P1 over Q2 minus Q1. P2, 15 minus 10 over Q2 minus Q1. 4 minus 10 equals 5 over minus 6. How much? Minus 0.83. Yes, thank you. There is a negative relationship between, or inverse relationship between the price elasticity of demand and the slope. The more elastic demand, or the more elasticity of demand, the less slope of the demand curve, right? Or the lower slope of the demand curve, right? And vice versa for sure. Let's go to so as you see, when the demand is elastic, or the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is larger than 1, the slope is less than 1, or the absolute value of the slope is less than 1, right? Let's go to the unitary elastic demand, or if the demand curve is a unitary elastic. The third case is when the demand curve is a unitary elastic. D, A, B, 10, 15, increasing the prices. Yes, the reduction N, or the increasing the prices, equals the increasing, or the increasing the prices equals the reduction the quantity demanded. So as you see, there is an increasing by 50% and the prices leads to the same reduction in the quantity demanded by 50%. So here we have increasing by 50% and decreasing by 50%. So ED equals minus 50% over positive 50% equals minus 1. In this case, the demand is a unitary elastic. Unitary elastic. Demand curve. What about the slope? Slope equals delta P over delta Q equals P2 minus P1, 15 minus 10 over delta P. 5 minus 10 equals 5 over minus 5 equals minus 1. So as you see, when the price elasticity of demand, or the demand is a unitary elastic, the slope equals 1 or minus 1, right? So when the demand is a unitary elastic, the slope of demand curve is a unitary, right? Let's go to the fourth case. When the demand is a horizontal or a vertical line, or perfectly inelastic demand curve, P, Q, when the demand curve is a vertical line. This is D, A, B, 10, 15, 10, 10. ED? Yes, for sure, yes, yes. Thank you, because ED equals delta QD percent over delta P percent. The price elasticity of demand equals delta QD equals 0 over delta P 50%. 0. So the demand is perfectly inelastic. Perfectly inelastic demand. Perfectly inelastic demand curve. What about the slope? Slope? Yes, it would be infinity. Thank you. Slope equals delta P over delta Q. Delta P, there is increasing the prices by 50%. Increasing by 50%. Over, there is no change in the quantity demanded, because 10, the old quant demanded is 10 and the new quant demanded is 10. So the change in the quant demanded equals 0, so it would be infinity. So if the demand curve is a perfectly inelastic, the slope would equal to what? How much? Infinity. Let's go to the last case. If the demand curve is a perfectly elastic, if the demand curve is a perfectly elastic or a horizontal line, this is the demand curve. A, B, P, 10, 10, 7. This is the price QD. ED equals infinity, or this is the perfectly elastic demand curve. Why? Because ED equals delta QD percent over delta P percent. The percentage of change in the quant demanded is minus 30%. From 10 to 7, the percentage decreasing and the quant demanded is minus 30% over. There is no change in the prices over 0. It's equals to infinity. Right? This is the absolute value. What about the slope? Yes, slope delta P over delta Q equals to, there is no change in the price, so it would be 0 over delta QD minus 30%. 0. So if the demand is a perfectly elastic, the slope would equal to 0. Right? Okay. Let's go to the mathematical exercises related to the relationship between the prices or the price elasticity of demand and the slope. Okay, let's go here. As you know that the general formula to calculate the price elasticity of demand equals, or ED, equals delta Q over delta P times LP1 over QD1. Right? And the slope equals delta P over delta Q. So we can connect these formulas in one formula. So as you see, the slope is the opposite of this part of this formula. So ED equals 1 over the slope times P1 over QD1. Right? Okay. So let's take a practical or a mathematical exercise. Suppose that we have the following diagram or figure. This is the prices or the price one demanded. This is 8, 6, 2, 4, 4, 2, 6, 8. This is a point A, B, C, D, E. Calculate the slope of the demand curve. To calculate the slope at point between A and D or D and C, B, C and B, the slope equals delta P over delta Q between any 2 points from D to C. Suppose that we are going to calculate the slope between D and C or C and D. This is between C and D. This is P1, P2, QD1, QD2. Right? So the slope equals P2 minus P1, 6 minus 4, P2 minus P1 over Q2 minus Q1 equals from C to D, P2 6 minus 4 over 4 minus 2 equals 2 over minus 2 equals minus 1. If we calculated the slope along this demand curve, it would be minus 1 in all cases, right? So let's calculate the price elasticity of demand using this formula.
2 minus 4.
Sorry?
2 minus 4.
Yes, 2 minus 4. Thank you. 2 minus 4. Yes, QD2 minus QD1. Right? Okay. Let's calculate the price elasticity of demand at point E. The first one, ED ED is the price elasticity of demand at point E equals 1 over the slope, 1 over minus 1 times P1 equals 8 over the quantity demanded is 0, right? The quantity demanded is 0. So equals 1 times 8, 8 over 0, it's equals to infinity. So the price elasticity of demand is at point E equals infinity. At point D, ED, at point D equals 1 over minus 1 times 6 over 2. 6 over minus 2 equals minus 3. The demand is elastic. At point D, the demand is elastic. At point C, ED at point C equals 1 over minus 1 times 4 over 4. 4 over minus 4 equals minus 1. It's a unitary elastic. So at the midpoint of the demand curve, it would be a unitary elastic. At point D or B, ED, elasticity of demand at point B equals 1 over minus 1 times the price is 2 over 6. 2 over 6 equals 2 over minus 6 equals 0.2 how much? 33 minus. So it would be inelastic, right? What about the last case? At point E or A, ED equals, at point A equals 1 over minus 1 times the price 0 over 8. It would be 0. So it would be perfectly inelastic. Or, yes, it's a perfectly inelastic demand, right? So as you see, when the slope of demand curve is a unitary or equals 1, we have different values for the price elasticity of demand, right? Okay. Who has any problem so far? Okay. Let's go to the determinants of demand. The determinants, of the price elasticity of demand. The determinants of the price elasticity of demand. The determinants of the price elasticity of demand. Of demand. We have many factors of the determinant affect the price elasticity of demand to be elastic, inelastic, perfectly inelastic, unitary. The major point or the major determinant of the price, the determinants of the price elasticity of demand is what? Thank you. The availability of substitutes. Number one, the availability of substitutes means how many alternatives for the product. If the product has many alternatives or many substitutes, in this case the demand would be more elastic. Why? So if the product has a few number of alternatives or has no alternatives, or substitutes, like the demand for insulin for the diabetic patient or the demand for flour. There is no alternative for insulin, there is no alternative for flour. So like the demand for insulin, in this case, the increasing the prices by 10% leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded, or maybe there is no change in the quantity demanded. So, in this case, increasing the prices by 10% leads to a smaller or a very smaller reduction in the quantity demanded. Or as you see, for insulin, there is no change in the QD. So in this case, as you see, or as you know, that the price elasticity of demand equals delta QD percent over delta P percent. There is no change in the quantity demanded. There is no reduction in the quantity demanded if the price goes up. So 0 over 10% equals to 0. In this case, the demand is perfectly inelastic. Sometimes we can see that there is a few number of alternatives or substitutes for the product or for the good. So, in this, like the demand for maybe the telecommunication services, we have maybe two alternatives for Jawal communication, or for Paltel we have maybe two alternatives. In this case, that increasing the prices of the services, the telecommunication services, leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded, right? Like the demand for the telecommunication services. For telecommunication services in Palestine, the demand, as you know, that the demand for telecommunication services in Palestine is inelastic. In this case, increasing the prices by 10% leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded, maybe 2%, 3%, 4%, leads to a smaller reduction by 2% and QD, so the demand would be inelastic. So as you see, if we have more and more substitutes products or goods, in this case, the demand would be more elastic, because if I have 100 of substitute goods for my product, it's easier to give up the product when the prices go up, right? Yes. So when the price or the more substitutes of a product, the more elastic demand or elasticity of demand, right? And vice versa for sure. When we have a few number of alternatives or substitutes, in this case, the price elasticity of demand would be small or smaller. Yes, like the demand for Pepsi, if it has many alternatives, many substitutes, in this case, the increasing the prices of Pepsi by 10% leads to a larger reduction in the quantity demanded of Pepsi, because the consumers will try to go or to find other substitutes or to purchase other substitute goods, like 7-Up, like Mirinda, like Orange, something else, right? Okay, what about the second determinant of the price elasticity of demand? Sorry, what? Yes, the necessity of the product. Thank you, Ahmed. The necessity of the product. Yes. Is the product necessary or important for the consumer? If the product is important for the consumer, if the product is important for the consumer, it's not easy to give up it when the price goes up. Like the demand for flour. The demand for flour. As you know that the flour is very important for the consumers, so increasing the prices leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded. So if the prices of flour increased by 10%, this leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded, so the demand is inelastic. A smaller reduction in the quantity demanded of a flour may be by 2%. So ED equals delta QD percent over delta P percent, 2% over 10%. So it would be inelastic. So the demand for the important of the products or the important products for the consumers means the demand for the product is inelastic, and vice versa. If the product is not important for me as a consumer, it's easy to give up it when the price is increased, right? So as you see, if the product is not important, when the price increases by 10%, we will reduce the quantity demanded by more than 10%, right? What about the third determinant of the price elasticity of demand? Yes, Muhammad?
The amount of income spent
The amount of income spent
on the product.
on the product, yes. Number 3, the amount of income spent on the product. And let's take an example to make it easy to understand the idea. What about the demand for salt, the prices of salt? When the price, as you know, that the salt has a smaller percentage of income spent on this good. Right? The price of salt equals 1 shekel per kilogram. If the prices of salt increased by 100%. In this case, there is a smaller reduction in quantity demanded because the consumer will not be affected by the increasing the prices, right? Yes. So, as you see, that the salt has a small amount of income, right? So, in this case, increasing the prices of salt by 100%. So suppose that the per kilogram of salt increased to 2 shekels. Is there any effect on the income spent on this or the amount spent on this good? No. So in this case, this leads to a smaller reduction in QD of salt. So suppose maybe the quantity demanded of salt may be increased by only 1% or 2%, or sometimes not. So suppose that the reduction would be 2% only. So in this case, ED, the demand is inelastic, because the percentage declining in the quantity demanded is smaller than the increasing the prices. So the general conclusion is, if the amount of income spent on the product is small, the demand would be less elastic or inelastic, right? Okay? And vice versa for sure. If the amount of income spent on the product is large, in this case the demand would be more elastic, right? What about the fourth determinant of demand, or elasticity, the price elasticity of demand? Sorry? The consumer income. Yes, the consumer income. The consumer income or wealth. Suppose that the prices of a chicken increased from 7 shekel to 10 shekels, right? Who will be affected? The rich families or the poor families by the increasing of the prices? Yes. So the quantity demanded for a chicken for the poor families would be larger than the reduction the quantity demanded for the rich families or the wealthy families, right? So as you see, if the prices of a chicken increased by 10%, the quantity demanded for the poor families would be declined maybe by 10% or 20%. So suppose that the quantity demanded for the poor families would decline by 20% or 15%. So in this case, the price elasticity of demand, ED, equals delta Q percent over delta P percent minus 20% over 10% positive minus 2. The demand is elastic for the poor families. But what about the rich families? For the rich families, if the prices of a chicken, this is for an example for the poor families. What about the rich families or the wealthy families? If the prices of a chicken increased by 10%, this leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded for the rich families. So this leads to a smaller reduction, maybe 3% of the quantity demanded for chicken. So in this case, as you see, that the percentage of change in the quantity demanded is smaller than the percentage of change in the prices. So the demand would be inelastic. So the general conclusion would be, if the consumer income is high, the demand would be inelastic. If the consumer income is small or low, the demand would be more elastic. Right? Okay, what about the last point or the last determinant of the price elasticity of demand? Yes. Yes, thank you, Ma'ad. The time. Number 5 is the time. We have to distinguish between the long term and the short term. The long term or short run and long run. Suppose that the prices, or to understand the idea, suppose that the prices of oil or olive oil increased. The prices of olive oil increased by 50%. In the short run, it's not easy to find substitutes for this product, right? So in this case, in the short run, it's not easy to find a substitute for this product. It's not easy to find substitutes for this product. So the demand would be what? Inelastic. So in the short run, the demand, this leads to a smaller reduction in the quantity demanded of olive oil. So this leads to a smaller reduction. We have a smaller reduction in quantity demanded maybe by 2%. So the demand would be inelastic. But in the long term, if the prices continue to increase, the consumer will try to find or to search for alternatives or substitute goods, like he can use maybe the corn oil or butter. In this case, he will try to find other substitutes or alternatives so the demand would be more elastic. And we have a real case or actual case in Palestine, the Gaza Strip. As you see, during the siege, which is imposed in the Gaza Strip, the car drivers, when the prices of gasoline increased, to 20 shekels. They tried, in the long term, they tried to find a substitute for the gasoline. They used the cooking gas in the long term, but in the short run, they continued to use the gasoline to run their cars. But in the long term, they tried to search for another substitute. They used the cooking gas to run their cars, if you remember this case, right? Okay. Now, let's go to the price or the cross price elasticity of demand. The cross price elasticity of demand. If you remember that we have 3 cases or 3 examples. Number 1, the prices of a chicken or meat, increasing the prices of meat. For that, this topic is a cross price elasticity of demand. مرونة الطلب التقاطعية. We have 3 examples. Number 1, when the price of meat increased. When the prices of meat increased, this leads to an increasing the quantity demanded of a chicken, right? This leads to increasing and the quantity demanded of a chicken. So, as you see, these 2 goods are what? Substitutes, right? These 2 goods are substitutes. So, increasing the prices of X leads to increasing the quantity demanded of Y. So suppose the meat is the product X and the chicken is the product Y. When the prices of a chicken or meat increase, the quantity demanded of a chicken increase. So there is a positive relationship between the prices of meat and the quantity demanded of a chicken. So the final result would be positive, right? So when the prices of X increased and the quantity demanded of X increased, the final result would be positive. So these 2 products are substitutes. Substitutes. So the cross price elasticity of demand illustrates or discusses the relationship between the prices of product X and the quantity demanded of the product Y. The prices of X and the quantity demanded of Y. There is intersection or the cross. So the second example, if the prices of fuel increased, the demand for cars would decline, or the quantity demanded for cars would decline. Yes, complementary. Yes. There is a reduction in the quantity demanded of cars. So, we have a positive increasing and negative decreasing. The final result would be negative. So, these 2 products, the prices of X increased, leads to a reduction in quantity demanded of Y, positive, negative. So, these 2 products are complementary. Complement. Yes. The last example. If the prices of X increased, the prices of salt increased, the quantity demanded for cars would not change. So in this case, it would be independent. Yes. The third case, increasing the prices of X sold leads to no change on cars. It's called independent relationship between these two products, right? So the cross price elasticity of demand would be 0. So let's take or calculate the cross price elasticity of demand. The cross price elasticity of demand. أمسح؟ Okay. The cross price elasticity of demand, the formula of the cross price elasticity of demand, it's quite similar to the general formula for the price elasticity of demand, but it illustrates the relationship between two products. So E YX equals, we are going to use the midpoint formula direct. Delta Q D of Y over delta P X times Px1 plus Px2 over Qy2 minus Qy1, or EYX equals Qy2 minus Qy1 over Px2 minus Px1 times Px1 plus Px2 over Qy2 plus, or 1 plus 2. Okay, 1 plus 2. It doesn't matter. 1 plus Qy2. This is the midpoint formula to calculate the cross price elasticity of demand. So, let's take an example. Yes?
Qy1 plus مش ناقص.
Which one?
في الأول.
The first one? Yes, positive. Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Positive. So, suppose if the prices of good X increased from 5 to 10 shekels, from 5 to 10 shekels, then the quantity demanded of product Y declined from 15 to 12 kilograms. Calculate the cross price elasticity of demand of the product Y compared to X. Calculate the cross price. Calculate the cross price elasticity demand of the product Y compared to X. To product X, and then explain or state the relationship between these two products and the level of a price elasticity of demand, or the cross price elasticity of demand. We have to use the following formula directly. So EYX equals, let's come back to the exercise. If the price of good X increased from 5 to 10, Px1 equals 5, Px x2 equals 10, then the quantity demanded of y declined from 15 to 12. Qy1 equals 15. Qy2 equals 12. Let's calculate the cross price elasticity of y compared to x. Eyx. So Eyx equals delta Q yd 12 minus 15 over Px2 minus Px1. 10 minus 5 times the summation of the prices. Px1 plus Px2. 5 plus 10 over Qy1 plus 15 plus 12. Eyx equals 12 minus 15 minus 3 over 5 times 15 over 27 minus 45 over how much 135 minus 0 point قديش على الآلة على السريع 33. So as you see, the sign of the cross price elasticity of demand is minus or negative. So these two products are what? Complement. Right? And the demand is what? Inelastic. So let's write the conclusions. F, number one, if the cross price elasticity of demand is negative, these two goods or products are what? Complement. Yes, بيكونوا complement. Number two, F Eyx as positive substitutes. The last case, if it was 0, if Eyx equals 0, there is no relationship between the product X and the product Y, so they are independent, right? Right. Let's take another example. Suppose that we have the following information about three products: product A, product B, product C. Product A, product B, product C. This is the product A, B, C. The prices, quantity demanded. The price is 10, 29, 14, and the quantity demanded for these products are 49, 60, 100. If the prices of product A, F, the prices of a product A decreased from and the prices of product A from 10 to 8, the change will be as follows. Or as follows. The product, the prices and the quantities. The product A, B, C. Price QD. The price is 8, 29, 14, and the quant demanded 65, 66, 85. The question is, so as you see, we have three products, product A, B, and C. The prices of product A is 10. The price of product B is 29. The price of product C is 14, and the quant demanded, or the origin quant demanded, or all the quant demanded for these products are as you see. The assumption is there is a change in the prices of, or decreasing the prices of A. It has affected on the quantity demanded for the product itself. When the price declined from 10 to 8, the quant demand for the same this product increased to 65. The quantity demanded for the product B increased to 66, and the quantity demanded for the product C declined to 85. The question is, calculate the cross price elasticity of demand for the product B compared to A. Calculate the cross price elasticity of demand for the product B compared to A, and state the relationship between the product A and B, and then the level of elasticity. So the question is, calculate the cross price elasticity of B compared to A. So EBA. The question is, calculate the cross price elasticity of B compared to A. So EBA. And then we are going to state the relationship between the product B and A and the level of elasticity. Right? So EBA equals delta Q B over delta A PA. Right? اللي بينذكر في الأول هنا بيكون في الكوانتيتي، واللي بينذكر في الآخر بيكون the prices times summation of PA1 plus PA2 over QB1 plus QB2. QB2 minus QP1 over PA2 minus PA1, right? So let's determine where is PA1, PA2, QB1, QB2. This is the origin prices, PA, the prices of A1. This is PA1, right? And then the price declined to 8. The price of A declined to 8. This is PA2, right? Then we are going to calculate the relationship between the prices of A and the quantity demanded of B. Where's the quantity demanded of B? 60. The quantity demanded of B, 60. This is a QB1, and this is the QB2. If there is a correct determination, it's easy to calculate the cross price elasticity of demand, right? So EBA equals QB2 minus QB1, 66 minus 60 over PA2 minus PA1, 8 minus 10, times the summation of the prices, 18, over the summation of quantity, 66, 126, equals how much? Let's go take the answer minus 0.4. So as you see, this sign of EPA is negative and the demand is inelastic. So when the sign of the price, the cross price elasticity of demand is negative, it would be what? Complement. Thank you. So let's go, and then we are going to calculate the cross price elasticity of C compared to A.
Without calculating B and A, we can know the relationship between the combined.
Yes. Without calculation. Thank you. Yes.
C substitutes. Without calculation.
How? When the price of A declined, the quantity demanded of C declined as well. So they are substituted. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you. Yes. So, but we have to do the calculation. It's obligatory to do the calculation. So, the question is, calculate the cross price elasticity of C compared to A. E, C, A. The cross price elasticity of C compared to A. E, C, A equals delta Q C over delta P A times summation LP or P A1 plus P A2 over QC2 minus QC, or sorry, plus 1 2 C2 plus. هذا في الكالكوليشن بيطلع ECA equals positive 1.2. After the calculation, the result is positive 1.2. So when the cross price elasticity of C is, or yes, C equals 1 positive, so these two goods are substitutes and the demand is elastic. But I have another question. Draw the demand curve for the product A. Draw the demand curve for the product A. Draw the demand curve for the product A and explain the level of elasticity and the type of elasticity for the product A. Draw the demand curve for the product A. As you see, the price of the product A is, no, I want to the demand curve for the product B, not A. I want you to draw the demand curve for the product B. This is the prices of B and the quantity demanded of B. The original price of B is 29. Suppose this is 10, 20, 30, 40. And the quantity demanded of B, 60, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, QD of B, 60, 70. So let's derive the demand curve for the product B. In the first case, when the price is 29, how much does the quantity demanded of B? 60. 29, sorry, yes, here, and 60. This is the first point. The second one, the price is 29, 66. 29, 66 here. If we connect these 2 points, point M, N, this is the demand curve for the product B. It's what? Perfectly elastic, right? So in this case, the demand curve for the product B is perfectly elastic, right? Okay. Let's go to the income elasticity of demand. The income elasticity of demand illustrates the relationship between your income as a consumer and the quantity demanded for the product. Income elasticity of demand. If your income increased and the quantity demanded for the product increased, this means that this product is what? Normal or inferior good? When your income increased as a consumer and the quantity demanded increased, the good is normal. So it's a normal good. Like the demand for fresh meat or fresh chicken or fresh fish. If your income increased and then the quantity demanded declined, positive and negative, like the demand for frozen meat. If your income increased, the demand for frozen meat would decline. So it's inferior good. So let's take an exercise or a mathematical exercise to explain the relationship between the consumer's income and the quantity demanded for the product. So suppose the consumer income increased from 1,000 shekel to 1,200 shekels a month. Then the quantity demanded of a chicken declined from 7 to 3 kilograms a week. Calculate the income elasticity of demand and explain or state the relationship between or the type of the product. Elasticity or income elasticity of demand, EI equals delta QD over delta I means income, times I2 plus I1 over QD2 plus QD1, or 1 plus 2. The same. The midpoint, yes. 1 plus 2. This is the midpoint formula to calculate the income elasticity of demand. Yes, yes, of course, because the increasing in income, yes, yes.
You mentioned the kind of product.
Yes, yes, yes. So in this case, this is our income 1, I1 equals 1,000 shekel. I2 equals 1,200 shekels. QD1 equals 7. QD2 equals 3. Direct substitution, this formula equals EI equals QD1 2 minus 1. 3 minus 7 over I2 delta I2 minus I1 100,000 minus 1,000 times the summation of 2,200 over summation of the quantity demanded 10 equals EI equals how much? Minus 4 over 200 times 2,200 over 10. How much? عمل الcalculations على السريع. EI equals minus 4.4. So as you see, the sign of income elasticity of demand is minus, so the product is inferior. So it would be frozen chicken. And the demand is elastic, right? So if the income elasticity of demand or the sign of income elasticity of demand is negative, the product is inferior. If the sign of income elasticity of demand is positive, it's a normal good. Thank you. شكرا يعطيكم العافية.